I never thought a secret could weigh so much until the day Jamie said, "You have to promise me this stays between us." And here I am, months later, still carrying it around like a stone in my chest. It's weird how just a few words, confidential, can turn someone you barely know into the only person you want to confide in. But that's exactly what happened, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how I got caught up in it all. So let me back up a bit. I'm Alex, 28, working in one of those nondescript office jobs downtown that makes you question your life choices every third coffee break. Nothing exciting usually happens, which is why this whole thing caught me off guard. I'm not the kind of guy who dives into drama or secret missions, but sometimes life just throws you a curveball. Jamie is that curveball. Jamie started working at the firm about 3 months ago. He wasn't like the others, no stiff collars or forced smiles. He had this easy vibe, like he was in on a joke that nobody else got. Tall, dark hair, always a bit messy, eyes like he was looking through you, not at you. I remember the first time we actually talked. It was during lunch in the break room. He laughed at my terrible attempt at a joke, and for some reason, I felt like I hadn't breathed properly until that moment. Our conversation started small. Work stuff, weekend plans, stupid TV shows we both pretended to hate but secretly loved. Then, one rainy Thursday, just as the office was emptying out and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, he pulled me aside. "Hey, can you come to the conference room for a sec? I need to talk to someone," he said. His voice was low, almost urgent. That's when I knew this wasn't about spreadsheets or project deadlines. We sat down in the cold, empty room, and he looked at me like he was about to admit the worst thing he'd ever done. "I need you to keep something confidential," Jamie said, his eyes searching mine like he was measuring if I could be trusted. I nodded, heart already pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. What he told me changed everything. It wasn't some silly office gossip or a harmless crush. It was real, complicated, messy. The kind of thing that makes you question what you thought you knew about people, about yourself. And just like that, Jamie went from being the guy the first grabbed coffee with to someone I wanted to protect, to someone I couldn't stop thinking about. I still don't know exactly why he chose me to share it with. Maybe because I'm quiet. Maybe because I look like I wouldn't run away. Or maybe, deep down, he was hoping I'd understand more than just the words he said. Either way, I'm stuck in this mess, holding on to a secret that could blow up everything if it ever got out. And now, every time I see him, there's this tension, like we're both waiting for the other to say something, to take the next step, but neither of us knows what that is yet. The office feels smaller when he's around, like the walls are closing in, and I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Sitting on a secret that's bigger than me, caught in this weird, fragile space between friendship and something more, and wondering if I'm brave enough to handle whatever comes next. Because with Jamie, I've learned that some secrets don't just stay quiet, they change you. And I have no idea what kind of change that'll be. After that day in the conference room, things got complicated. Jamie started acting different around me, not in the casual, joking way anymore, but like he was carrying a weight he didn't want to share fully. We still talked, but there was this undercurrent, like every word was a test to see how much I really knew or cared. One evening, I was leaving work later than usual, grabbing my jacket from my desk when Jamie caught up to me in the hallway. "Hey," he said, sounding hesitant. "Got a minute?" I shrugged. "Sure, what's up?" He glanced around, like he was checking for invisible eavesdroppers. "Can we go somewhere? I need to clear my head." We ended up at a late-night coffee shop a few blocks from the office. It was that kind of place that's half empty at night, with soft jazz playing and the smell of burnt espresso lingering in the air. Jamie ordered a black coffee. I went for a hot chocolate, secretly glad for the excuse to stay. He stared into his cup for a long time before speaking. "I don't usually let people in like this," he said, voice low. "But you're different." I wanted to say something clever, but all I could do was nod and keep my eyes on him. I realized then how little I really knew about Jamie. The guy smiled easily and laughed a lot at work, but there was this barrier he kept firm, like the rest of his life was locked away somewhere. "I'm not gonna lie," he said finally. "Keeping that secret, it's eating me up. I don't know how much longer I can do this." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "You don't have to do it alone, Jamie." He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "That's the thing. No one can know." "Not really. If it gets out, everything could fall apart." I leaned back, trying to make sense of it. "Okay, but what if you don't tell me? What if I just keep pretending like I don't know?" Jamie's laugh was bitter. "That would be easier, wouldn't it? But I don't want that. I want someone who gets it, who can just be there without making it worse." I sighed, feeling my heart race. Even if I didn't fully understand the secret, I knew I wanted to be that person for him, the guy who didn't run away. The weeks after that coffee shop talk were some of the most intense I've ever had. Every glance, every accidental touch, felt loaded with meaning. I caught myself stealing moments to watch him across the office, wondering what he was thinking, what he was going through, and, selfishly, hoping he was feeling the same weird pull I was. One rainy Friday, we ended up working late again. The office was nearly empty, just the hum of computers and the tapping of keyboards filling the air. Jamie was sitting beside me, and for once, the silence wasn't awkward. "Can I ask you something?" he said suddenly. "Shoot. Have you ever wanted something so badly that it scared you?" I thought about it. "Yeah, more times than I care to admit." He smiled faintly, eyes flickering with something I couldn't read. "That's where I'm stuck. I want something, but I'm terrified of losing everything if I go after it." I turned to look at him, feeling an urge to reach out but unsure if it was welcome. What if the risk is worth it? Jamie's gaze dropped to his hands. "I don't know if I'm brave enough." That night, I realized I wasn't just holding on to his secret. I was holding on to him. I wanted to be the reason he found a way to be brave. But secrets like his, they don't just stay locked away forever. One wrong move, one careless word, and they explode into the open. I was terrified of what that would mean, not just for Jamie, but for us. Still, every time I saw him, every time he smiled or looked at me like I mattered, the fear faded just a little. Maybe that was the point. Maybe some things are worth the risk, even if the outcome's uncertain. I don't know where this is headed yet. All I know is that I'm in it now, tangled in a secret that's bigger than me, and for once, I'm not running away. And honestly, that scares me just as much as it excites me. The next few days were a blur of stolen glances and half-finished sentences. I caught myself replaying our last conversation over and over, trying to decipher what he really meant when he said he wasn't brave enough. Brave enough for what? To risk his reputation? His job? His whole world? And where did that leave me? It was during one of those awkwardly charged moments that Jamie did something unexpected. We were in the elevator, just the two of us, the kind of close quarters where silence gets loud. I was fiddling with my phone, trying to look busy, but I could feel his eyes on me. "Alex," he said quietly. I looked up, heart thudding. "Yeah?" He hesitated, like he was weighing his words carefully. "I don't want this to be weird between us, whatever this is." I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. "It doesn't have to be." He nodded, then surprised me by stepping a little closer. "Can I be honest? Because I haven't been completely straight with you." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I'm scared, okay? Scared that if I let myself feel something, it'll all come crashing down. But when I'm around you," he took a breath, "I feel like maybe I could be brave. Maybe it's not so scary if I'm not alone." There it was, the confession that made my chest tighten and my head spin all at once. I wanted to say something, anything, but the elevator dinged, doors sliding open, and suddenly the moment was over. We stepped out into the lobby, but the tension between us didn't disappear. If anything, it thickened, like the air had gotten heavier. I could see it in his eyes, hope, fear, and something fragile I wasn't sure he wanted me to touch. A few days later, I found myself wandering toward a little park near the office after work. It was one of those quiet spots with worn benches and scattered leaves, a place people usually passed by without thinking. But that day, it felt like the perfect escape. And there he was, Jamie, sitting on the bench, staring at the city skyline like he was searching for answers in the fading light. I hesitated for a second, then walked over. "Mind if I join you?" I asked. He gestured to the empty spot beside him. "Not at all." We sat in silence for a while, the city noises distant and muffled. Then he finally spoke. "You ever wonder why some people carry secrets like a badge of honor, and some people carry them like a curse?" I thought about it. I think it depends on who the secret's about. If it's someone you care about, it's more like a responsibility. He smiled, but there was sadness in it. Yeah, responsibility. That's it, exactly. And sometimes it feels more like a prison. I glanced at him, catching the way his hands were clenched tightly in his lap. "You don't have to be trapped, Jamie. Not with me." He looked at me then. Really looked. And for a moment, I swear the world paused. I want to believe that. I want to believe I'm more than my mistakes. "You are," I said without hesitation. "You're not defined by one secret or one moment." He let out a shaky breath and leaned back on the bench, eyes closing briefly. "It's just hard. There's so much at stake." "Then let me be part of what's at stake," I said, surprising even myself. "Let me share the burden." He opened his eyes and met my gaze, something raw and unguarded shining there. "You really mean that?" I nodded. "Yeah, I do." For a second, we just sat there, the city lights flickering around us and the cool breeze brushing past. And then, slowly, Jamie reached out and took my hand. It wasn't dramatic or flashy, just a simple, steady touch that felt like a promise. Like maybe, together, we could face whatever was coming. Maybe we could be brave after all. But of course, life loves to test that kind of hope. The very next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "I know what Jamie told you. Keep your mouth shut, or you'll regret it." My stomach dropped. Whoever this was, they weren't bluffing. And suddenly, the secret I'd been protecting felt like a ticking time bomb, ready to explode. I stared at the message, heart racing. I thought about Jamie's face yesterday, the way he looked hopeful, like maybe things could work out. And now, here I was, standing on the edge of something that could shatter it all. I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going anywhere. Not now. Not ever. But how do you protect someone when the world is trying to tear them down? And more importantly, how do you keep a secret when it's starting to feel like the only thing standing between you and losing everything? I don't have the answers yet, but I do know this. Whatever happens next, I'm not just a bystander. I'm in this. And maybe that's the bravest thing I can do. The threat in that text hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just a warning. It was a line in the sand. Whoever sent it wanted me to back off, and fast. But backing off wasn't an option anymore. Not after everything Jamie and I had started to build, fragile as it was. I debated whether to tell Jamie. Part of me thought he should know immediately, but another part worried it would just make things worse. Scare him even more. I hated that whoever was behind this was already messing with his head, and mine. I decided to keep it to myself for the time being. At least until I figured out what the hell was going on. That afternoon, when I saw Jamie in the break room, he looked tired, like the weight of the world was pressing down on him. I handed him a cup of coffee, and he gave me a tired smile. "Thanks, Alex." We sat together in a corner, the usual easy banter replaced by a quiet tension. "How are you holding up?" I asked. He shrugged, staring out the window. "Same. Just tired. You?" "About the same." I hesitated, then said, "Listen, if there's anything you need to tell me, anything at all, I'm here." He looked at me like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then, almost under his breath, he said, "It's getting harder to keep everything inside." That struck a nerve. I reached out, resting a hand over his. "You don't have to do this alone." He looked down at our hands, then back up at me. "I'm scared, Alex. Scared that if this secret gets out, it won't just ruin me. It'll ruin everyone around me. Maybe even you." The look in his eyes, vulnerable, scared. "I don't care about the risks. I care about you." He blinked, clearly surprised by my words. "You don't have to say that." "I want to," I said firmly. "Because it's true." We sat there, the noise of the office fading to background static. It was one of those moments where everything else stops, and it's just you and someone else, standing at the edge of something that could change everything. Then came the knock on the door. Our boss, Mr. Daniels, stepped inside, eyes flicking between us. "Jamie, can I see you in my office?" "Now?" The look Jamie gave me was quick but loaded. He nodded and stood, his face pale. "I'll be right outside," I said. Jamie disappeared down the hall, and I was left sitting alone with 1,000 questions racing through my mind. I paced nervously, trying to piece together what might be happening. When Jamie returned, his face was tighter, more guarded. That was intense. He said quietly, "What happened?" I asked. "Nothing I can share. But it's clear someone's watching." That night, we agreed to meet up somewhere private. We needed to talk, away from prying eyes and whispered gossip. We found a dim little bar, the kind with low lighting, and a playlist that felt like a secret itself. Jamie was quieter than usual, but when he did speak, there was an urgency in his voice. "The secret I told you, it's not just something personal. It's tied to some people I can't afford to mess with." "Like who?" He shook his head. "I can't say, but they're dangerous." I swallowed hard. "You should have told me sooner." "I wanted to," he said, eyes dark, "but I needed to know I could trust you first." "You can," I said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. For the first time, Jamie smiled without the usual shadows. "Thank you." We sat there, the night stretching out between us, full of unspoken promises and quiet fears. But as we left the bar, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd just stepped off the edge of a cliff, and the fall was about to begin. The very next day, things at work shifted. Jamie was called into meetings, his phone buzzing constantly. The atmosphere felt thick with suspicion, and I caught a few colleagues shooting him sideways glances. Rumors were starting to swirl, and I knew the secret wasn't safe anymore. One afternoon, Jamie pulled me aside. "Alex, we need to be careful. If this gets out, I don't know what happens." "I'm with you," I said, heart pounding. He looked at me, a mixture of gratitude and fear. "Promise me you won't tell anyone, not even your closest friends." I nodded. "I promise." That night, I lay awake thinking about Jamie, about the secret and the danger looming over us. I wanted to protect him, to be his safe place. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could keep the storm at bay. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let go. Not now. Not ever. Days blurred into each other after that. The secret we shared felt less like a bond and more like a shadow creeping over every moment we spent together. Jamie was on edge, his usual calm replaced by a jitteriness I hadn't seen before, and I was caught somewhere between wanting to help and feeling completely helpless. One afternoon, I was sitting at my desk when Jamie slid into the seat across from me, eyes tired but determined. "Hey," he said, voice low. "I think it's time we stopped hiding." I frowned, unsure what he meant. "About us," he clarified. "About everything." I blinked. "Are you saying we should tell people? At work?" He nodded slowly. "I can't keep pretending. Every day, the walls close in more. And if someone's already threatening me, maybe they're betting on me staying silent." That hit me harder than I expected. The idea of opening up, risking exposure, it was terrifying, but the thought of Jamie breaking under the pressure was worse. "Okay," I said after a moment. "We'll face it together." He managed a small smile, relief flickering in his eyes. We agreed to tell our closest coworkers first, people we trusted. It was risky, but the alternative felt like drowning in silence. The next day, we sat down with two colleagues, Sarah from HR and Mark from accounting. Both surprised us by their immediate support. "You're not alone," Sarah said, squeezing Jamie's hand. "We've got your back." Mark nodded. "Company policies are clear on discrimination. If anyone gives you trouble, you come to me." That made me feel a little better, but the tension didn't disappear overnight. The office buzzed with whispers, and I caught Jamie avoiding eye contact, like he was bracing for a blow. One evening, after work, Jamie and I grabbed dinner at a small diner downtown. The air between us was thick, and I could tell he was holding back. "Talk to me," I urged gently. He sighed. "The threats haven't stopped. If anything, they've gotten worse. What kind of threats? Jamie hesitated before pulling out his phone. A series of text messages scrolled across the screen, anonymous, menacing. "Keep your mouth shut," one read, "or you'll regret it." I felt anger rise, but also a fierce protective instinct. "Have you told the police?" "No," he admitted. "Afraid it'll make things worse." I reached across the table, taking his hand. "We'll figure this out together, I promise." That night, sleep was elusive. I kept picturing Jamie's face. Vulnerable, scared, yet somehow still fighting. I realized then how much he'd come to mean to me, how much I wanted to be the person who stood beside him, no matter what. A few days later, we decided to confront the issue head-on. Jamie scheduled a meeting with HR and security, presenting the evidence of the threats. The office felt colder that day. Eyes followed Jamie as he walked by, some sympathetic, others less so. But he stood tall, and I was proud. After the meeting, Jamie pulled me into a quiet hallway. "Thank you for being here," he whispered. I smiled. "Always." As weeks passed, things slowly began to settle. The threats died down, and Jamie found a new strength in being open. We grew closer, sharing more than just the secret we'd been guarding. One rainy afternoon, we found ourselves back at that park bench where so many late-night talks had happened. Jamie reached out, fingers intertwining with mine. "I'm glad I told you," he said softly. "I'm glad you stayed." "Me too," I replied, heartful. In that moment, I realized that some secrets might be heavy, but shared, they become a bridge, a way to connect, to heal, and maybe even to love. For a moment, sitting there on that park bench while the rain drizzled softly around us, it felt like the world had slowed down just enough for us to breathe. Jamie's hand in mine was steady, warm, grounding. I wasn't sure if it was the rain or just how tired I was, but suddenly I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could finally start to move forward instead of just surviving. "I never thought I'd say this," Jamie muttered, eyes downcast, "but I'm scared of what comes next. Not the threats or the gossip, but us. What this means." I squeezed his hand gently. "You don't have to be scared. Nothing's set in stone. We figure it out together." He looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Together." The word felt like a lifeline thrown across a dark river. We stayed there for a while, neither of us saying much, just leaning into the quiet. Eventually, Jamie broke the silence. "Do you think people can really change? Like, for real?" That caught me off guard. "What do you mean? Like, can someone who's always played it safe actually take a risk? Even if it means everything they've built could fall apart?" I thought about it. "I think people can surprise you. I mean, look at us. You coming out at work, telling me your secret? That's brave. More than most." He gave a small laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, well, bravery's got nothing to do with how scared you are. That's the thing," I said softly. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, but you do it anyway." Jamie nodded slowly, like that idea was sinking in. After a beat, he surprised me by leaning his head on my shoulder. I didn't pull away. Instead, I wrapped my arm around him, pulling him closer. It was a small gesture, but it felt huge. We sat like that until the rain started to pick up, then reluctantly got up and made our way back to the apartment I'd been crashing at since things with my family got complicated. Jamie and I had been keeping it low-key, no rush, no pressure, but that night, something shifted. We cooked dinner together. Jamie was hopeless in the kitchen, but he laughed when I sarcastically called him a disaster, so it was a good kind of chaos. We talked about silly stuff, movies we liked, music, childhood memories, things that had nothing to do with the secrets or threats or the mess surrounding us. At some point, Jamie looked at me, eyes serious. "Alex, can I ask you something kind of intense?" "Shoot," I said, leaning forward. "Do you think I'm worth it? The risk, the fallout, all of this?" My heart squeezed. "Jamie, you're more than worth it. You're worth every sleepless night and every messed up day." "I don't care about the risk, because the reward is you." He smiled, the kind that lights up his whole face, and for the first time in a long time, I saw him let himself be fully present, fully hopeful. That night, after dinner and a binge of terrible reality TV, Jamie stayed over. When I woke up in the morning, he was still asleep beside me, peaceful for once. I traced a finger along his arm and realized how much I wanted to protect him. Not just from outside threats, but from the fear that had been eating at him for so long. The week that followed was a roller coaster. We had to navigate work, the whispers that still lingered around the office, and the occasional uneasy glance from people who didn't know how to act around us. But through it all, we had each other. One day, Jamie surprised me by showing up at my apartment with 2 concert tickets. "You've been working way too hard," he said, grinning. "Thought we could use a night off." We went to see this indie band neither of us had heard of but ended up loving. The music was loud, the crowd was wild, and I caught Jamie singing along to a song he didn't know the words to. It was one of those moments where I realized how much life there was beyond the shadows we'd been living in. On the way home, the city lights blurred past the cab window, and Jamie reached over to grab my hand. "Thanks for sticking with me," he said quietly. I squeezed his hand back. "I'm not going anywhere," but as much as I wanted to believe that, the feeling of something looming never fully left me. There were still unanswered questions about who had been threatening Jamie, why, and what they wanted. The past wasn't done with us yet. One evening, as we were settling in to watch a movie, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I'm still watching." My stomach dropped. The threat was back, more direct this time. Jamie saw the look on my face and took the phone from me. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he pulled me into a tight hug. "We'll get through this," he whispered, "together," and I believed him. Because whatever came next, whatever secrets were still buried, I wasn't facing them alone anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt ready to fight. Not just for Jamie or for us, but for the chance at something real, something worth the risk. The message on my phone still stung when Jamie and I sat down together that night. Neither of us said much at first. Words felt heavy after everything, but the quiet between us was different. It wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was more like a calm before whatever storm might come. And somehow, that felt okay. We agreed to take the threats seriously, involving the authorities and the company's security team. It wasn't perfect. There were no dramatic showdowns or villain reveals, but little by little the pressure eased. The anonymous messages stopped, and the office slowly softened around us, the whispers turning into nods or smiles instead of judgment. Through it all, Jamie and I grew closer in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't about grand declarations or sweeping gestures. It was in the small things. The way he'd text me just to say good morning, the way I'd bring him coffee without being asked, the quiet moments on the couch when we'd hold hands without saying a word. Those moments made all the noise outside fade into the background. One Saturday, we found ourselves back at the park, the same bench where so much had started. The sun was warming the air, and the city felt less intimidating, more like home. Jamie looked over at me and smiled, that easy, genuine smile I'd come to love. "I'm still scared sometimes," he admitted, "but not like before. Now it feels different, like fear and hope can live in the same space." I nodded. "Yeah, I get that. It's messy, but maybe that's how it's supposed to be." He reached out, fingers brushing against mine. "Thanks for being my person through all of this." I squeezed his hand gently. "You're mine too. We're in this together." We sat quietly, watching people pass by, their lives unfolding in ways we couldn't predict. And for once, I wasn't overwhelmed by the secret or the fear. Instead, I was filled with a quiet certainty that whatever came next, we'd face it side by side. Life wouldn't suddenly be perfect. There would still be challenges, moments of doubt. But with Jamie, I'd found something real and worth fighting for. And sometimes, that's all you need. As the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow around us, I realized that the secret Jamie had once begged me to keep had become something else entirely. Not a burden, but a bridge, connecting 2 people who chose courage over fear, connection over silence. And that was enough.